Hello, friends. Welcome to today's daily devotion. I'm Kerry Wood, the pastor of the Goldston Methodist Church in Goldston, North Carolina. We are proudly a global Methodist congregation. And this week, we're returning to our study of Paul's letter to the church in Rome. Last week, we diverted and looked at some other letters of Paul, but this week we are now back to Romans. We had left off in Romans 2, so today we're beginning Romans chapter 3, and I'm reading the first 8 verses from the Open English Bible. Hear now these words. What is the advantage then of being a Jew? Or what is the good of circumcision? Great in every way. First of all, because the Jews were entrusted with God's utterances. What follows then? Some, no doubt, showed a want of faith, but will their want of faith make God break faith? Heaven forbid. God must prove true, though everyone prove a liar. As the scripture says of God, that you may be pronounced righteous in what you say and gain your cause when your people would judge you. But what if our wrongdoing makes God's righteousness all the clearer? Will God be wrong in inflicting punishment? I can speak, but as a person. Again, heaven forbid. Otherwise, how can God judge the world? But if my falsehood redounds to the glory of God by making his truthfulness more apparent, why am I, like others, still condemned as a sinner? Why would we not say, as some people slanderously assert that we do say, let us do evil that good may come? The condemnation of such people is indeed just. Okay, are you confused? Have you lost the thread of the argument that Paul's trying to make? Are you even confused as to what Paul is even attempting to say, much less convincing us of what he has to say? Well, yeah, this is a really complicated place because Paul gets into using some tools of rhetoric that are really not familiar to our ears and way of thinking today. He's using rhetorical questions. He's posing an argument by giving us one side and then talking about how that side is inadequate to explain and express what this is all about, this gospel of Jesus. We see one of the things that people are wondering was, well, should I see an advantage to being a Jew, or is there an advantage to not being a Jew? And if being a Jew is an advantage, then what is that advantage? Well, Paul says the advantage is the Jews have God's utterances. In other words, God revealed God's plan of salvation through the Jewish people. When God called Moses on the mountain and created this covenant to set these people apart, God was doing something unique in the world that all other people don't have access to the way the Jews do. But even though the Jews had that access, they didn't necessarily do good with it. As Paul says, they broke faith. So does that mean God breaks faith? No, God never breaks faith. So instead, our breaking faith, showing our badness, is actually a way of revealing the eternal goodness of God over and against the badness of humanity. But if that's true, then should we not just be as bad as we possibly can so that we can see how good God actually is? Again, Paul says, no, that's not what he's trying to say. What I think Paul is trying to tell us is that the goodness of God is over and above anything that we do or do not do, but that we are caught up in this vortex of a sin nature that prevents us from having any access to God's goodness. And that is where we really need to explore more, which we'll do as we dive more into Romans 3 for the next daily devotion.